As we've grown as a society, globalism has allowed for fast connections with people all across the globe at a rate that we have never seen before in human history. This has created a new era in which consumerism is popular and now very accessible for many people with the use of technology, which has helped new companies reform and shape the way they sell. One of these companies is one of the biggest online shopping platforms, Shein. Founded in 2012, Shein has completely changed the game when it comes to shopping and consumerism. Shein states that their motto is making the beauty of fashion accessible to all. Throughout the past decade, we've developed tools to help us fulfill that goal by implementing automation to optimize production efficiency and our supply chain. We are able to provide customers with an affordable range of hyper trendy styles. Though on the surface it may seem as though this company provides many positives, it also comes from a long history of controversies regarding their business practices. There is a past history of child labor, labor exploitation, environmental harm, stealing designs from smaller businesses, and much more. Now, in their new reports, Shein attempts to clear the air on some of these issues by providing what they call is transparent data, in which each year they release a new report on how they are following specific UN guidelines that support human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption, as well as other personal goals and commitments. They are also releasing data they collect each year of their CO2 emissions, where they come from, as well as audit reports from their factories. With all of this, they attempt to form a clear communication from the company to the consumer about its practices. But taking a closer look at the information can reveal more about the company. For this video, I will be taking a closer look into how companies like Shein use corporate social responsibility to create a socially acceptable image, and whether corporate social responsibility is being used for Shein to appear responsible to the consumer, all while still causing negative effects to the groups around them, specifically Shein workers and the environment. I will go over the 2021, 2022, and 2023 reports and specifically look at their two main topics in which they address their impacts and goals on people and the environment. While addressing these, I will touch on the validity of their statements and if there's any contradicting information about what they have claimed within the reports. Lastly, I will conclude by looking into the economic and political impacts, as well as make my conclusion if the report is a genuine effort on Shein's part to make change, or if it's just creating corporate social responsibility as a marketing strategy to create a socially acceptable company to the consumer to sell more clothes. First, I will look into the people section of these reports. As explained in the intro, Shein has faced lots of past controversy regarding people. More specifically, people started to ask questions to how ethical Shein really is if it's creating thousands of designs daily for very cheap prices. This brings up the question if workers are being treated fairly and if they are either being underpaid or overworked. In general, in each report, they talk about programs that they give to workers to help benefit them, such as Shein's Spotlight program, which provides financial assistance for childcare and education to employees of its suppliers. They also mention in almost every report donations that they made that year. They explain as well as how all their clothes help with diversity, as they have many ranges of styles and sizes for all. This section of the report mentions lots of things that they do, but I specifically wanted to focus in on their Shein X and their audit reports. In 2021 report, they discussed the launch of Shein X that would support emerging designers with the resources to build global brands, aiming to reach 3,000 designers by 2022. In 2022, they state that they have reached their goal from last year and hired 3,000 designers for the Shein X program. And for next year, they wanted to invite 1,000 new designers from around the world. In 2023, they had 4,600 designers launch creations under Shein X program to date, and they had more than 2,000 designers on board this year. Though this program was meant to help support small independent designers, there is still controversy that Shein is stealing people's designs from small businesses. They even got a lawsuit recently from stealing designs. The Guardian reported on September of 2023, 3 different independent designers had their designs stolen. And even now in 2024, there are still reports coming out of Shein continuing to steal designs from independent designers with evidence and proof. Essentially, it appears as though Shein is stealing designs even though they have a whole program dedicated to supporting small designers. They still continue not to respect other designers and have many designs copied from other people outside of their workforce. In 2021, Shein introduced the Shein Responsible Sourcing, or the SRS system, to conduct regular audits of its suppliers. With the help of third-party agencies like OpenView and ITS, as well as its own staff, they conducted 700 audits. Of those, 462 suppliers were rated C, 105 were rated B, 14 were rated A, 35 were rated D, and 84 had zero tolerance violations, or ZTV. In the chart, they showed percentages of all the violations from all 700 audits. Violating factories were given 30 to 90 days to remedy issues or risk termination. In 2022, the SRS program continued, now with 2,812 audits. And in the chart, they also included 664 of the audits from 2021. They go more in depth about the audits and explain how Shein's executive management is responsible for reviewing the supplier code of conduct and approving the methodology and frequency of the SRS audits. This year, it seems Shein changed how violations were calculated, only counting ZTV violations for percentages. Making comparisons with the 2021 data is inconsistent. They also introduced stricter rules. Facilities with 2 consecutive D ratings or a ZTV must undergo an improvement program, and they can't receive orders until they have remedied violations. In 2023, Shein conducted 3,990 audits, with 92% performed by third-party agencies. They reported improved performance and terminated 5 factories for violations, including 2 cases of child labor. New violation categories were introduced, including immediate termination violations, or ITVs, and immediate remedy violation, IRVs, with a lower rating of E replacing ZTV. In conclusion, the audit reports show inconsistencies as Shein has changed both the calculation methods and categories used over the years. It's recommended that someone skilled in math review the numbers to assess if there is a deflation or manipulation of the numbers. Additionally, there is no clear indication whether suppliers are informed in advance about the SRS audits, which could lead to workers being coached for compliance. As for controversies, reports of worker mistreatment persist. A May 2024 CNN report citing Public Eye found some workers still enduring 75-hour work weeks, with wages barely improving since 2021. After overtime deductions, workers earn as little as 2,400 yuan, and that's $332 per month, well below the living wage of 6,512 yuan, or $900 in China. In 2021, Shein committed to sustainability across its value chain, focusing on reducing emissions, waste, and environmental impact. The company is increasing the use of sustainability materials, adopting water-saving techniques, and working with suppliers to manage chemicals responsibly. Shein is also using digital printing to reduce water use and developing recycling programs for post-consumer waste. Additionally, the company is setting goals for renewable energy and plan to release their CO2 emissions the upcoming years. In 2022, Shein reported in CO2 emissions for both 2021 and 2022 and saw an increase of emissions in 2022. The low Scope 2 emissions were largely due to purchasing carbon credits and participating in cap-and-trade programs, which skewed the real results. Shein acknowledged the rise of emissions, stating that they're at the beginning of their mitigation journey, and started decarbonization efforts in late 2022. They put most of the blame of the emissions to their supply chain, transportation, and product use, areas that they are not directly under their control. Even though the year prior, they were affirming their commitment to lowering emissions across the entire value chain. For some of Shein's 2022 direct goals, they target a 42% reduction in direct emissions by 2030, aiming for carbon neutrality in Scope 1 operations. They're also focusing on reducing electricity use, which accounts for most of their direct emissions. They plan to use 100% renewable energy for all direct operations by 2030. For Scope 3, they acknowledge that most of the emissions come from the supply chain. So, they've decided to partner with Apparel Impact Institute and Brookfield Renewable Partners to promote renewable energy and energy efficiency. They also committed $7.6 million to all the programs to reduce supply chain carbon emissions and engaged suppliers in decarbonization efforts starting in 2023. Lastly, they plan to transition to 31% of polyester-based products to recycled polyester by 2030, which is expected to save 3 million tons of CO2 over the next 5 years. They also began incorporating recycled polyester into products in 2022 with the Evolution collection. Finally, for 2023, we see some massive increases in CO2 emissions from all the sectors. Reducing Shein's direct impact for Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions are mainly from electricity usage, accounting for a small portion of their total emissions. In 2023, Shein's energy was 72% from renewable sources, up from 68% in 2022, and the goal is 100% renewable energy for direct operations by 2030. Some key initiatives in 2023 were installing 43.6 megawatts of solar capacity in 7 warehouses, improved energy efficiency in 3 key facilities, developing recommendations for further efficiency, and transition to lower emission fire extinguishers in data centers. For reducing Shein indirect impact this year, over 99% of the emissions came from Scope 3, mainly from suppliers. Shein is working with suppliers to reduce these emissions. Some key initiatives in 2023 were working with Clean by Design projects across 28 supplier sites, saving 14,000 megawatts per hour of electricity and reducing 46,000 metric tons of CO2 annually. They also promoted rooftop solar energy in the supply chain, helping 31 suppliers install solar panels. They also introduced low-impact delivery options in Europe, offering self-pickup options for customers. And lastly, they started to implement nearshoring and offshoring in Brazil and Turkey. They claim that these strategies would reduce transportation distances and emissions, saving over 314,000 metric tons of CO2 from localized procurement. But they had not yet stated the negative impact it might have on the local communities. My conclusion for the environment section is that even though Shein states they are putting into place all these efforts, I believe that not enough is being done to make real impactful change with their business practices. From having one of their main goals by replacing fire extinguishers in data centers, to having consumers drive to pick up their products, that way they don't have to calculate those CO2 emissions, to trying to implement nearshoring and onshoring without finding out the negative impacts it could have on the local community. Overall, I feel as though their mitigation tactics are very minuscule and do not target the real problem of the situation. In conclusion, this report highlights several key areas in which Shein is falling short in its business practices. While the company offers some positive aspects such as affordable clothing and a wide range of styles and sizes, there's also significant concerns that need attention. For instance, the Shein X program contradicts the values it claims to support. Regarding workers, although there appears to be communication in place, more scrutiny is needed on how the audits are conducted to ensure a proper safety standards, fair wages, and overall worker welfare. When it comes to the environment, Shein continues to underperform, with only minimal changes made that fail to address the deeper systematic issue within their supply chain, resulting in the ongoing CO2 emissions. Overall, I believe these reports can be misleading at first glance. While some improvements have been made, they are often superficial and do not tackle the root causes of the problem. This suggests that Shein is more focused on managing its public image rather than meaningful long-term changes to its operation. The company's small adjustments appear to be an attempt to cover up the ongoing issues that negatively impact people and the planet,
rather than a genuine effort to drive sustainable change. For the economic impact, they're attempting to stay in good favor with the public to keep sales up, which has worked as they are seen as the #1 online fast fashion brand around the world. For political impact, Shein represents a larger image for all companies and their relation to the government. Without proper government regulation and restrictions put in place on these companies, they can find ways to continue to exploit people and the earth. I'd recommend a further study on this topic and specifically conduct an ethnographic study on Shein workers to better understand how the company negatively affects its workers and to find ways in which they can improve as a company in both the people sector as well as environmentally. Thank you.